On Talking with Dr. Donna, we focus on 4 pillars of health to help build a generational health network to end the cycle of premature death in the Black community. I created Talking with Dr. Donna as a way to educate as many people as possible and give accurate information from a trusted physician. Go to Talking with Dr. Donna and get accurate information. And then share that information with your family and friends. And if you like what you see, like my channel and subscribe. Remember, every Thursday, keep your appointment with Dr. Donna. Hey, good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you so much for keeping your appointment tonight with the doctor. I'm your host, Dr. Donna White-Carey, and this is Talking with Dr. Donna. We are on this show and we have this episodes that come to you every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. because we are building a generational health network. What does that mean, Dr. Donna? That our mission is to end the cycle of premature deaths in Black communities here in America and across the diaspora. And the way we do that is by focusing in on 4 pillars of health. We focus in on our emotional and mental health. We focus in on our spiritual health. We focus on our physical health, and we focus in on our environmental health. So I firmly believe if we pay attention and put effort and energy and resources into each one of these pillars, we can end this cycle of premature death. If you're not already a follower of mine, please go over to YouTube channel and hit subscribe, and that way in that little notification button, you'll get notified every time I go live. You can follow me on Instagram, you can follow me on Facebook, or you can also follow me going to my website and checking out all the other things that Dr. Donna does. All right, so good evening, everyone. Tonight, oh my goodness, we have so much to talk about. Oh my gosh, so much to talk about. I'm saying hello to everyone out there. We are live tonight as we usually try to be. So if you have a question or a comment, go ahead and put it in the chat, and I'm monitoring the chat and I can see your comments. And we'll try to respond to any questions that you have. So tonight there's a lot of things that we wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about, the state of our community and the many things that we need to focus in on as a part of generational health. Because in generational health, again, we're not just talking about adults, we're not just talking about me, or we're not talking about seniors in our community. We're talking about from our babies all the way up through, until we end life. And so there's a lot of things that we need to be paying attention to. And I know it might be a bit overwhelming because we just came out of a pandemic where most of our efforts, most of our energy was all around COVID. And now we're kind of coming out of that. But what's left behind is a multitude of things that we also need to continue to pay attention to. And not just us paying attention to, but forcing the powers that be, people who are in control, who are developing policies, who are a part of our policing, that we pay attention to what's going on and we demand some change. One of the things that needs to change sort of within our community is mental health stigma. So May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And that means that for each and every one of us, we need to pay attention to our mental health. That's a part of one of our pillars. Our very first pillar in generational health is paying attention to your mental health. How are you feeling? What is your mood? How you're moving in this world? What are your anxieties? Are you depressed? Are you feeling like you're overwhelmed? We were talking the other night, if you're overwhelmed, what is it that we're dealing with so many things going on in our communities? It's okay. It's okay that you may not feel like your best. It's okay that you may not feel the way you used to feel prior to the pandemic. It's okay if you're feeling more overwhelmed, you're feeling more stressed, you're feeling more anxious, you're feeling you don't have as much joy as you used to have. It's okay. It's okay. What I want you to do is to treat those emotions and feelings just like you would treat if there was kind of you're not feeling well in any other part of your body. What do? You go seek some help. So if you're feeling stressed, overwhelmed, sad, depressed, feeling like, why am I living? And you want to think about taking your life, get some help, okay? And that help includes professionals who have gone to school and done training to make sure that they can help you. They're called mental health professionals, psychiatrists, psychologists, licensed clinical social workers who are working as therapists. We need each and every one of them. And I want you, as a part of our mental health awareness, to stop acting and feeling shame if you need to reach out for help. There is no shame in wanting to take care of what I consider the most important organ in your body, which is your brain. It controls everything. So why would we not seek help to make sure that we are healthy in our minds, just like we would if our heart was sick, or if we had a broken arm, if we had any other issue, we go see the specialist. So I want to encourage you this month to go see a mental health specialist if you feel like you need to talk to someone. This is a website that you can go on, and it can help you to find a therapist. We will also put a link in the description after tonight's show to the therapist of Black Girls Therapy. We gave that before, but I want to just make sure that we'll make sure to have that access for you again. Okay? So May, Mental Health Awareness Month. Be aware of how you're feeling and make sure that you get the help that you need. So we also wanted to talk about some other emergencies that's going on in our community. So in our community, the good thing about our community is that we have a lot of organizations who come together and work together to try to solve some of the problems that are happening within our community. Because if we don't do it, and we don't care about it, who is going to care about it, and who is going to do something? So there are a number of community-based organizations who have come together and sort of declared our own state of emergencies along certain lines of different things that are happening in our community. One of those state of emergencies is around violent crimes. We know that in our community we are suffering from a rise in violent crime, and what seems like it's everywhere. And why is that? Well, we are not going to solve that problem tonight. We're not going to answer that question tonight, but we are going to talk about some ways in which we can assist. So what is a violent crime? So it's a crime where the offender uses or threatens to use a violent force upon the victim, a car, a weapon, right? A fist, violent crimes. And some of our violent crime offenses are murder and non-negligent manslaughter. Okay, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to get into the terminologies of this, but I just want you to understand what is underneath the listing of violent crimes. Rape, of course, we know that is a violent crime. Robbery and aggravated assault. So when we look at what's happening in community around us, we can see that we have lots and lots and lots of violent crimes happening in our city. I don't know if you can see this well, but this is a violent crime right here. That top city, I'm going to give you one guess what that top city is. Oakland. Oakland has the highest rate of homicides for last year of all the Bay Area cities. Next, Vallejo, and number 3, Richmond, followed very closely by Fairfield, Antioch, Hayward. They're all kind of clustered in there. So we know that Oakland is a hotbed for high violent crimes and homicides in particular. When we look at through the kind of the trajectory of where violent crimes is, I know, y'all, I left my pointer in my backpack that's sitting over there. So tonight, my finger is going to have to be my pointer. But violent crimes, we can see it kind of ebbs and flows, right? It kind of high, then it goes down low and creeps back up again. And we're starting to see an increase in violent crimes again starting in 2021. There's lots of kind of theories about why that's happening. And the majority of it is really, it's multifactorial. It's just that we have a lot of things happening in our community. We have a lot of people who are homeless. We have a lot of people who are jobless. We have a lot of people who are undereducated and underemployed, not making enough to kind of make ends meet. And so there are a lot of reasons why we have such violent crimes in our community. I'm looking here at the comments. But this is a show about health, so we're going to talk about why violent crimes is important for us to pay attention to, because it reduces productivity. It decreases property values, right? People, if you own a house in a violent neighborhood, your house is going to be worth less than someone who has a house in a neighborhood that doesn't have a high crime rate. That then impacts generational wealth, right? And we know that generational wealth helps to create generational health, because it means if you have more money, you can eat better foods, you can live in better communities. It's all comes together. It also disrupts social services, right? And so if you are living in a community that might be more violent, nobody wants to come in and hang out in your community or provide services in your community, which then continues the cycle of poor health in our communities. So one of the biggest things that violent crime impacts is our long-term health. And I know you may have heard about this phrase. I've talked about it before. It's called toxic stress. And what is toxic stress? So toxic stress is a combination. If you have high doses of stress or adversity, that's right, we're calling it. So living in a community with high rates of crime, that's an adversity. Low education or no schools, that's adversity. In a household that may have lots of violent crime within the household, like domestic violence, that's adversity. So if you grew up or are growing up in a household that has high, in a community that has high doses of adversity, and there's no sort of buffering protection. So the environment may not be as safe and stable. Your caregivers may not be as nurturing. And that's not because they don't love you, but maybe they're, if it's a single mom, maybe she's working 2 jobs just to make sure, particularly in the Bay Area, that she can afford a place for everybody to live. So the caregiver may not be present, not because they don't love you, but because they may be busy trying to just make sure that the family is living. The community around you may not be stable, may not be safe. We just talked about violent crimes. So if you have high doses of adversity and you don't have these protectors, studies have shown over and over and over again that that high dose of adversity with no buffering protection leads to long-term disruptions in our brain development, and it leads to disruption in many of our organ systems, like our immune system, our hormone system, and our metabolic systems. And that then those disruptions in our brain that causes our kids to not be able to focus, to not be able to sit still, then causes that cycle we're talking about of poor performance in school. And you know that that cycle leads to. But the worst part about high adversity, no buffering protection, disruptions in the brain, in the organ systems like our immune system, our hormonal system, our metabolic system, is that those changes become biologically embedded. This is generational health. Biologically embedded. Our DNA actually is changed and altered so that for generations there is this negative impact on your health. That is amazing, right? We think of violent crimes or violent communities as just an impact on the safety, But it's not just the impact on our safety, it's impact on our children, on their lives, how they're living, how they're developing, and their ability to be healthy. I'm getting emotional because it's important. So we have something called ACEs, adverse childhood events, that we pay attention to as pediatricians, and now we do it as adults. And we score, we ask questions like, how was it when you grew up? What was the environment like? What was your home life like? And we ask all these questions, and we score it. And when we get to the score, if you have a high score, that means you have a higher risk of developing chronic disease, heart disease. We already know heart disease just on its own. It's the #1 killer of every ethnic group, every man, every woman. The #1 killer is heart disease. Well, now we have that risk factor, living in America, eating the food that we eat, breathing the air that we breathe, the soils that we eat our food out of. But now, in addition, layered on top of that are these adverse events that occurred either in our childhood or in the childhood of our children that we are currently raising. And now we have a higher risk of chronic disease. And if in your scoring of your ACEs, you have 6 or more ACEs, that studies have shown that leads to the premature death that I always talk about. It's right here. That leads you to living 19 years less than someone who does not have those adverse events as a child. You tell me out there, you're watching, does that mean we're in a state of emergency? In my book, yes. We absolutely are in a state of emergency around violence, not just for the sake of safety, but because it biologically changes these children who are growing up right now. And so their children, and unless we do something, we're not going to end that cycle. That's why it's important for us to pay attention to generational health. That's why it's important for us to pay attention to violent crimes, because it's not just about the violence in the neighborhood, but it's about how that violence impacts every single aspect of our lives. All right. Thank y'all for the encouragement out there. I pulled it together. Thank you. Okay. So the other state of emergency that I want to talk about revolves around something that's you may start to hear more and more and more about. You're definitely going to start to hear more and more about. Is something that is a bill that is being presented to legislature to be passed called the Ebony Alert. And the Ebony Alert is a Senate bill that is being proposed by Senator Stephen Bradford. And it basically says, instead of having an Amber Alert when there is a missing child, this is an Ebony Alert when there is a missing person of African American or African descent. And why should we be paying attention to an alert just for Black people? You know I'm going to tell you why, right? It's on this slide. I'm going to tell you why we're paying attention to this. Because Black people make up about 13.4% of the entire United States population. But when it comes to missing persons, we make up 40%. We're 13% of the entire population, but 40% of people who go missing in this country. Black children make up 38% of missing child cases. And 53% of all juvenile prostitution are Black children. Now, as you can see on the slide, I have there, what the heck is juvenile prostitution? Most of these juveniles did not wake up one morning and decide they wanted to be prostituted. They wanted to walk the streets and sell their bodies for sex. So that's called human trafficking. But we have all these words and names. We want to give things to make it sound as if the victim is the person who is responsible and to blame. No, that's human trafficking. That is the 38% of our black children who are missing, who are then prostituted. That's human trafficking. So the Ebony Alert from Senator Bradford is to say, let's put out this alert whenever a black child goes missing. And why do we want to put it out there as an Amber Alert? Because we know, if you all kind of lived in the Bay Area, just a couple of years ago, we had this uproar because we recognized that missing black children were not getting the same type of media attention as a white child that goes missing. It's all over the media. It's all over. They're saying it on CNN. They're saying it on local news channels. They're saying it on MSNBC. They have Fox News. Everybody talks when there is a missing white child. When there's a missing black child, it's just par for the course. Yeah, another one missing. We want to make sure that we recognize that our children are important and that our children deserve the same attention and the same chance of being found early as white children. So the bill, because the devil, the details make appointment, make it important. The devil is in the details, right? So one of the reasons why the Amber Alerts don't go out as often for black children is because are black children missing or did they run away? And how you classify that child determines if that child gets the Amber Alert or not. Well, most of our black children who go missing are said to be runaways versus that they're missing. So we need to figure out, go back please, not quite yet. We need to figure out how do we end this stigma of our black children being runaways. Now, I reached out to my law enforcement colleagues to ask, well, how do you know if a child is missing versus a child runs away? And, they look at the whole picture of the child. They look at the history of the child. Has the child gone missing before? Look at the child's social media. Look at the circumstances surrounding that they're missing. Did somebody witness them being taken, or did they willingly go? And that is going to be how we kind of make a change. So when we think about this this Ebony Alert and how it's going to impact our children, we need to make sure that we really advocate and our voices are heard about this missing versus runaway differential that law enforcement makes. And most of the time, our black children are considered runaways because they weren't snatched per se, right? They may have willingly been kind of led into a situation in which they willingly get into the car or they willingly walk somewhere to meet someone, and then they're considered a runaway when in fact they were lured into that situation and then kidnapped. So more to come, but state of emergency, yes, we are. Our missing children, our rates of missing children, we are in a state of emergency around our human trafficking. Next week, the show is going to be solely about human trafficking. And we're going to talk about how that state of emergency and the human trafficking for our black children, males and females, here in the city of Oakland. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is something that is no longer considered an emergency. So we had homicides and violent crimes, state of emergency. We're looking at our human trafficking and our children missing being a state of emergency. And one of the things that was a state of emergency that no longer is considered a state of emergency, you guys know what that is, that's COVID. So May 11th, federal emergency ended on COVID. That means that many of the protections that were around that state of emergency also are ending. Many of the requirements around how to keep yourself safe and your family members safe are ending. But just because the state of emergency around COVID has ended doesn't mean that the virus has gone away. We're still finding people who are getting infected with COVID. I'm still hearing little tiny outbreaks of COVID in people who've gone to certain events or from their families. So COVID is still with us. It's just no longer as prevalent as it was before. But that doesn't mean that you need to lower down your kind of vigilance per se. So your masks, I still recommend you wear a mask. I still wear a mask if I'm out in public spaces with lots of people. I wear a mask, and I'm recommending that you think about doing the same. If I go into a doctor's office or I go into a building where there's people who are maybe close to me and I don't know them, I'm wearing a mask. So I'm still encouraging everybody to continue to wear your masks. If you're starting to feel ill, I'm encouraging you to test before you then go out and be with family members or friends or gather together. If you're feeling ill, think about it, stay at home, and continue to test. So next slide. The one thing that I want to talk about is one of the protections that are leaving with this state of emergency is health insurance. I mean, I just talked about toxic stress. I just talked about chronic disease. I just talked about the importance of making sure that we get our mental health taken care of. All of this really impinges on your health, right? So in the state of emergency, health care insurance became available to everybody. And you can see that by these rates. Look at these rates. Can you put that up so it's close up for folks? Kind of take me off the screen. Look at these rates. Over 90% for every single ethnic group has health insurance. Why? Because when we were in the state of emergency, the federal government said, you know what? No more restrictions on Medi-Cal. Everybody can get insurance. Whether you qualified for it before, it doesn't matter. Everybody gets it. Well, now the state of emergency has ended. And so those who received health insurance during this time, because of the state of emergency, we are now starting to reevaluate those people, to see if you still qualify for health insurance. So where we were in the 90th percentile for every single ethnic group to have insurance during this last few years, that's not where we're going to be after they reevaluate. I, for one, am going to pay close attention to these numbers to see where we are with our health insurance, because we know that the disparities and the gaps in care for Black and brown people has always been and continues to be wider than for the health disparities for white folks. So I am going to be paying attention to this, and you should too, because this again is generational health, physical health. Our mental health is impinging right here on this health insurance and your ability to get access to quality care when you need it. All right, so I'm going to go here on and see if there are any questions. I see comments. Yes, we're in a state of emergency. Great info. Okay. We are definitely in a state of emergency. So, I never like saying where we are without giving us some things to do. So there should be a slide, Donnell, says what we can do. Thank you. So there's a couple of things that we can do if you're living in the city of Oakland. If you're not in the city of Oakland, your city has a city council as well. It is the city's responsibility to keep us safe, to keep your family members safe, to keep your children safe. So if you live in the city of Oakland, one of the things that you can do is to attend virtually or in person the Oakland City Council meeting. It's coming up on 5/30, the 30th of this month, after Memorial Day, so you can already get your Stone Soul picnic party on and still make it to the Oakland City Council meeting on the 30th, right? Can I get yes out there? Yes, you can. On the 30th, the Oakland City Council meeting, they're going to talk about the Ebony Alert. Councilmember Treva Reed is introducing this Ebony Alert as a resolution that can be adopted by the city of Oakland. They're going to discuss that at this council meeting, hopefully vote and pass some sort of a resolution that moves us closer to getting this Ebony Alert in the city of Oakland. They're also going to discuss the budget, and the budget is important because it's going to say where those resources, where's that money going, what communities, to what type of services is the money in the city going to. You have a voice, you pay taxes, you live here in the city. Come out to the city council meeting on the 30th and let your voice be heard, because you've heard and saw all the statistics about the states of emergency around violent crimes and around human trafficking that we currently are in. For violent crimes, True Vine Ministries has what's called SAVE, Soldiers Against Violence Everywhere. Every second Saturday, we are out on the block trying to bring attention to the homicides in our communities. And so if you are wanting to get involved in saying something about violent crimes, you can get involved with SAVE every second Saturday. The location rotates. So what I would suggest is that you subscribe or follow the True Vine Ministries Facebook page, where we always post where the next stand-in is, and you can get involved with saying something and doing something about the state of emergency around our violent crimes. Like I said, next week I have two great guests. We're going to talk about the state of emergency around our Black girls and boys who are being human trafficked. A number of organizations have gotten together and we have declared it a state of emergency. We are trying to get our city to declare it a state of emergency and our public health department to declare it as a state of emergency. But next week we're going to talk in specifically about what we can do to make sure that our voices are heard and our children are safe. All right, that's all I got for tonight. Let's see if there's any questions. I'm going to the chat. Is ACE a regular practice for pediatricians? When did it start? So it is not a regular practice, but the state has been trying to encourage pediatricians to make it a part of their regular practice. So you can ask for an ACEs screening. They probably have the ability to do the ACEs screening, but it's not yet kind of a general part of all pediatric practices. But again, it's not just pediatric practices, it's also adult practices. So I know in my day job, working with West Oakland Health Council who already does ACEs screenings for all of their adults, and now we're instituting it for all of their kids. So adult practices also can do ACEs screenings. All right, so here's a question about the natural immunity for COVID is just as effective if getting both of the vaccines. That's yes and no. So your natural immunity for COVID wanes after about 3 months. And we're saying that the vaccine provides immunity for closer to 6 months to a year. So while natural immunity is very important, and it definitely has a place in helping to protect you, the longer term is to actually get vaccinated. So thank you for asking that question, Annette, because it reminds me that we need to talk about the fact that you can, if you're over the age of 65, get a bivalent booster shot number 2 right now. So if you're immunocompromised or over the age of 65, you can get the second bivalent booster. If you've never been vaccinated before, or you want to get your first booster, it's the bivalent booster now. That's the only shot that is currently being recommended, this bivalent booster. So good question, Annette. I hope that answers. And do you believe masks are still as relevant? Yes, I absolutely do. Let's see if there's any other questions. Mask up on the elevator. That's right, Carmen. All right. See if there's any other questions. This is your time to ask. All right. All right. Well, as usual, we have a food of the month, and our food of the month this month is eggplant, just in case you've forgotten, because I haven't seen any of you post some eggplant recipes. So really think about eggplant as adding it to seafood dishes, adding it to spaghetti. Okay, I'm going to have to tell you a little secret, but don't tell my family, okay? I add eggplant to my spaghetti sauce. And I do that because it has the texture of meat. And so they can't tell that it's not meat. So I use less meat and more eggplant, and mix it in, and they think that they're getting all meat in their spaghetti. But don't tell my family, okay? Don't mess up my secret. So you can add it to lots of sauces to kind of give a kind of a meaty texture to your sauces and provide some extra benefits of some vitamins and some minerals and some fiber, because I don't peel the eggplant. That's going to give us more fiber. I keep that on and put it into all of the sauces. So if you have a great eggplant recipe, please let me know. Post it on my Facebook page. Post it on Talking with Dr. Donna. Let us know how you are incorporating eggplant into your diet, which is our food of the month. As usual, I want you to amplify this message. The things that you heard on this episode tonight, I want you to share it out. Don't hold it in just for yourself, but I want you to share it out with your friends, your family members, your coworkers, and most importantly, I want you to talk about safety to the young girls and the young boys in your lives. In the description from this episode, and also on Talking with Dr. Donna on all of my pages, I'm going to post a tip sheet that many of the organizations that I described that's calling this a state of emergency kind of put together about how to keep your child safe from being kidnapped or falling victim to human trafficking. We know that they are kidnapping kids off the streets in broad daylight with lots of people all around. So being aware is probably the #1 tip that you can give to your young adult, your teenage daughter, your teenage son. Pay attention. Don't walk with your phone in your head down like this, walking around, but always be alert to make sure that if you see danger coming, you can run. So I'm going to have a tip sheet that's going to be available that gives lots of tips on how to try to help make sure that your kids remain safe. All right? All right. So next week, like I said, is a great episode, but one of the things that it also is the end of season 3. Can you believe it? Next week is going to be the end of season 3 with Talking with Dr. Donna. Can we clap it up for the production team? We will be here next week. We're going to be celebrating in studio for the end of season 3, ramping up for season 4 of Talking with Dr. Donna. So next Thursday, make sure you keep your appointment with the doctor, that you tune in at 6:30. And during this week, please pay attention to your surroundings. Teach others to pay attention to their surroundings. Pay attention and make sure that you take care of yourself and take care of your loved ones. All right, until next week. See you then. On Talking with Dr. Donna, we focus on 4 pillars of health to help build a generational health network to end the cycle of premature death in the Black community. I created Talking with Dr. Donna as a way to educate as many people as possible and give accurate information from a trusted physician. Go to Talking with Dr. Donna and get accurate information. And then share that information with your family and friends. And if you like what you see, like my channel, and subscribe. Remember, every Thursday, keep your appointment with Dr. Donna.